They thought Odin had invented a ritual. He had not invented a ritual. He had found someone who needed one. There are children who experience the world at a volume other people don't hear, who feel the texture of fabric as information to be processed, rather than sensation to be ignored, who need the same sequence of events in the same order at the same time, not because they are rigid, but because predictability is how the world becomes safe. Sunniva was this kind of child. Her parents, Kirsten and Dag Thorvaldsen, did not know this for the first 2 years of her life, during which they only knew that Sunniva required certain things at certain times in certain ways, and that departures from these things produced distress that was different in quality from ordinary toddler distress, and that this difference mattered, but they could not yet name it. Odin had been in the family for 4 years before Sunniva arrived. A Great Pyrenees, 122 pounds, white as a cloudbank, with the serene authority of a breed developed over centuries to make decisions without being told what to decide. He was not an indoor dog by nature. He was a perimeter dog, a distance keeper, an animal that understood protection as something you practice at the border rather than at the center. He changed this for Sunniva. It started when she was 14 months old. Every evening, between 6 and 6:30 p.m., Odin would come from wherever he had been in the house and sit down in front of Sunniva, not beside her, facing her, his enormous white face 6 feet away from her smaller face, both of them on the carpet, and he would sit there in the specific stillness of a dog that has decided it is exactly where it should be. Sunniva would look at him. He would look at her. This lasted, on average, 12 minutes. Then Odin would rise, walk to his bed in the corner, and lie down, and Sunniva, who for the preceding hour had been cycling through the escalating patterns of late afternoon distress that Kirsten had come to think of as the difficult hour, would calm. Within minutes, not gradually, as if something had been administered. Kirsten mentioned it to her mother. Her mother said, "Animals are therapeutic." Kirsten said, "This is not therapeutic in a general way. This is specific." He arrives at 6 o'clock. He sits for 12 minutes. He leaves and she is calm. This is a protocol. Her mother said, maybe they made it up together. Dag watched it happen on a Wednesday evening and said nothing. He was an engineer. He thought in systems. He watched his dog and his daughter maintain 12 minutes of mutual stillness and felt the specific discomfort of an engineer who can see a pattern and cannot yet identify the variable it's responding. 2. Subscribe right now, because 12 months of this ritual is what led to the conversation that changed how this family understood both their daughter and their dog. At age 26 months, Sunniva was referred for a developmental assessment following an evaluation by their pediatrician, who had observed over 6 appointments, a constellation of characteristics that warranted a closer look. The assessment took 3 separate sessions across 2 weeks. It was conducted by Dr. Priya Raghunathan, a developmental pediatrician with a specialty in early childhood neurodevelopmental conditions. In the 3rd session, while reviewing the family history, Dr. Raghunathan asked, "Does she have any specific routines that she requires?" Kirsten described Odin, the evening session, the 12 minutes, the calming. Dr. Raghunathan put down her pen. She said, "How long has the dog been doing this?" 12 months, Kirsten said. Dr. Raghunathan said, "Your daughter likely has an autistic profile. She has likely had it since before she was walking. The features we're seeing, the sensory processing differences, the need for predictability, the specific communication patterns, these were present and developing over the period you're describing." She said, "Dogs have been documented to detect the neurochemical differences associated with autistic presentation. The elevated cortisol responses to sensory overwhelm, the specific patterns of stress chemistry that accompany sensory processing disorder. Your dog was responding to something in your daughter's chemistry that was signaling, this is a nervous system that needs a specific kind of regulation." She said, 12 minutes at the same time every day is not a ritual he invented. It is the duration and frequency at which his presence was demonstrably reducing her stress response He measured what she needed and gave her exactly that. Has your pet ever responded to your child in a way that only made sense later? Tell us in the comments. Every one of these stories deserves to be heard. Great Pyrenees dogs were bred over centuries to guard livestock in the high mountain passes of the Pyrenees range, operating independently for long periods in conditions where there was no human to tell them what to do. The breed developed an assessment system that operates without instruction. Identify the vulnerable. Identify the threat. Position yourself between the two. Stay until the situation is resolved. What Odin had identified in Sunniva was a nervous system that experienced the world as a series of unmodulated sensory events, arriving without adequate buffer. What he had assessed as the threat was the late afternoon accumulation of that overwhelm. What he had positioned himself as was a regulation mechanism, a predictable, warm, low sensory presence that arrived at the moment the overwhelm peaked and stayed for exactly the amount of time needed. He had been doing occupational therapy with a toddler for 12 months, without a credential, without a referral, without anyone in the house having asked him to. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who never asked for anything in return. If these stories matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. Sunniva is 4 years old now. She has a support team, an individualized plan, a vocabulary of strategies that is growing every month. She knows more about how her own mind works than most adults know about theirs. She knows because she has been told with great care that her brain is different in ways that are not deficits, that the world she experiences is more textured and more vivid and more demanding than the world most people walk through. She is learning to name it. She is learning to work with it. At 6 o'clock every evening, Odin comes from wherever he has been in the house and sits down in front of her. His enormous white face, her smaller face, both of them on the carpet. He sits for 12 minutes. He is never once varied by more than 40 seconds. When the 12 minutes end, he rises and goes to his bed. Sunniva watches him go. Then she picks up whatever she was doing before he arrived and continues, as if she has been in some wordless and accurate way, refilled. She has never asked why he does it. She has never needed to. She has known from the first time she was old enough to know anything about it that he arrives when she needs him to. This knowledge, certain, unquestioned, as natural as the fact that the sun goes down at the end of the day, may be the most important thing anyone has ever given her.